Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. The sea at night, black and endless, the horizon swallowed in mist. The only sound is the slap of waves against the hull and the low hum of your compass, until it starts to spin in your hand, whirling madly, as though the ocean itself has forgotten where north is. You glance at the stars for guidance, but clouds smother them. The radio crackles, sputters, then goes silent. And in that silence you feel it, the ancient, unshakable fear of vanishing into waters that have swallowed thousands before you. They call it the Bermuda Triangle, a vast stretch of ocean where ships and planes slip into legend, where storms rise without warning, and where every calm horizon hides the possibility of disaster. For centuries, it has lured explorers, scientists, and dreamers into its heart, only to answer their questions with silence. So, come with me. Tonight, we sail together into the Triangle's depths, not just across its waters, but through its history, its mysteries, and its myths. Imagine the salt wind on your face, the shifting deck beneath your feet, the strange pull of the unknown ahead. The voyage begins now. The sea stretches out before us, vast and unbroken, and yet you know, even before anyone tells you, that this is not just any ocean. The waves here carry a certain heaviness, as though they know the secrets they have been ordered to keep. Imagine yourself standing on the deck of a vessel, Miami far behind you, the lights of the city fading into a string of faint stars along the coast. The air grows thicker, salter, with that peculiar scent of seaweed and iron that hints at distance, at leaving the safety of land. Ahead lies nothing but open water, and somewhere within that horizon, the Bermuda Triangle begins to take shape. It is not, of course, a place marked on any official map. You won't find neat dotted lines printed in an atlas, no warning label on a nautical chart that says, "Here be monsters." And yet, for decades, sailors, pilots, and storytellers have agreed on its rough borders, an invisible triangle connecting Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Draw those 3 points on a map, and you enclose an expanse of more than 500,000 square kilometers of ocean. It is an area so large it could swallow entire countries and still have room for storms, squalls, and mysteries. Picture it in your mind. To the northwest, the glittering towers of Miami, gateway to the Americas, where countless vessels have set out with confidence and optimism. To the northeast, the tiny but formidable island of Bermuda, perched in the Atlantic like a stone fortress wrapped in reefs. And to the south, Puerto Rico, gateway to the Caribbean, with its jagged coastline and deep surrounding waters. Between these 3 points lies not just open sea, but a crossroads of worlds, warm Caribbean currents meeting the colder swells of the Atlantic, hurricanes spinning out of Africa and charging westward, tides shifting restlessly above trenches that plunge deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Now imagine yourself moving along one edge of that triangle, sailing from Miami toward Bermuda. The waters here, at first, feel almost too calm, crystalline turquoise, the kind of sea that postcards envy. But calm seas have always been deceptive. Beneath that clarity, the ocean floor drops suddenly, steeply, into blue-black chasms. The Gulf Stream, a powerful current, a kind of conveyor belt for the Atlantic, sweeps through here at high speed, capable of carrying a drifting boat hundreds of kilometers without anyone noticing until it's far too late. To the untrained eye, the surface is idyllic. To the mariner, it is alive, unpredictable, a river within the sea itself. It is no wonder, then, that sailors once feared these waters long before anyone whispered the phrase, Bermuda Triangle. Even in the days of Columbus, there were tales of compasses behaving strangely, of glowing lights in the night sky, of the sea swallowing ships with a sudden, terrible hunger. Columbus himself, on his first voyage in 1492, recorded unnerving events as he passed near the Sargasso Sea, that still, weed-choked expanse at the heart of the Atlantic that overlaps with the triangle. His compass, he noted, veered unpredictably, an omen to his crew, already skittish on a voyage that tested the edges of the known world. Think of that moment. A wooden ship, creaking under the weight of sails, the smell of tar and damp hemp in the rigging. The crew restless, fearful. Night falls, and the compass needle refuses to settle. The stars overhead are clear, but the instruments, those fragile guardians of direction, begin to betray them. To men who believed in omens, it must have felt like the ocean itself was trying to lead them astray. Sailors are practical people, yet they are also creatures of superstition. On seas this wide, where the horizon stretches like eternity, they learn to read signs others dismiss: the flight of birds, the smell of coming rain, the sudden shift in the swell beneath the keel. A compass spinning where it should hold steady, well, that was no small thing. It was a warning. And so, little by little, a reputation began to grow around this corner of the ocean, a reputation of danger, of strangeness, of a place where the normal rules might not apply. The geography itself conspires to feed that unease. To the east, Bermuda rises not gently, but violently, from the abyss, an isolated volcanic seamount fringed by lethal reefs. Countless ships, even in the age of modern charts, have torn their hulls on those hidden teeth, sinking within sight of shore. To the south, Puerto Rico is bordered by the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, where the seabed plunges more than 8 kilometers into darkness. A shipwreck that vanishes into such a trench will never be seen again, swallowed whole by silence. And between these points the currents twist and whirl, storms form with little warning, and waters shift from shallow banks to sudden abysses in the span of a few nautical miles. Now let yourself drift into the mind of a pilot, not a sailor. You take off from Miami, the engines of your aircraft roaring as you rise into the open sky. At first, the sea below is calm and glittering, the Florida coast shrinking to a thin golden line behind you. But as you head east, clouds gather swiftly, thickening into towers of vapor. Instruments flicker. Static creeps into the radio. The ocean below seems endless, an unbroken expanse of blue. And somewhere, far ahead, you know that Bermuda is waiting, if you can find it. Many have not. It is here, in this stretch of sky and water, that Flight 19 will one day vanish. But we are not there yet. For now, it is enough to feel the immensity of the triangle, its sheer scale. 500,000 square kilometers, an area larger than France, larger than Texas, large enough that a dozen ships could disappear within it and still leave no trace. Which, of course, they have. There is a paradox in places like this. On one hand, they are real, physical, measurable, water temperatures, wind patterns, tectonic rifts. On the other hand, they exist in the imagination as much as in reality. Say the words Bermuda Triangle to anyone, and they don't picture latitude and longitude. They picture mystery. They picture ghost ships adrift on a silent sea, radios sputtering with half-finished sentences, planes swallowed by clouds that open and close like doors to another world. And so, as we drift farther into this expanse, let us slow down and listen to the voices that have carried across its waters. Sailors whispering in hammocks. Pilots scribbling logbooks. Scientists measuring currents. Journalists weaving tales. Each adds to the tapestry of the triangle. Each leaves a mark upon this otherwise blank ocean. Pause with me for a moment. Listen. Can you hear it? The lap of the waves, steady and eternal. The faint hiss of the wind in the rigging. A gull crying overhead, far from land. And beneath it all, the silence of the deep, a silence so profound it makes you wonder how much of the human story has already been written here, and how much has simply been erased by the sea. We have reached the threshold now, the edge of the triangle. To step further in is to step into history, into mystery, into the uneasy company of all who have vanished before us. And so, with compass in hand and the horizon widening, we set our course inward. Ahead waits the first of the triangle's great stories, the disappearance that will etch its name forever into legend, the mystery of Flight 19. The waters around us shift as though stirred by an unseen hand, and the horizon darkens. We've crossed the threshold into the triangle, and the sea feels different now, more watchful, more secretive. You can almost sense the ghosts of stories already waiting in the air, tugging at us like the currents below. And if there is one story that rises above the others, one disappearance that cemented this place in legend, it is the vanishing of Flight 19. Picture it, December 5, 1945. The war is over. The world is exhaling after years of bloodshed, and yet the oceans are still alive with the buzz of aircraft, the hum of naval patrols, the constant activity of training exercises. At Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station in Florida, 5 Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers prepare for what should be a routine training flight. These aircraft are sturdy, heavy beasts of war, 3-man crews, broad wings, engines that roar like thunder. They've carried bombs across the Pacific. They've weathered storms and enemy fire. On this day, their mission is simple, a navigational training run known as Flight 19. 19 men in total climb aboard. Some are young, barely past the age where they would have been high school students had history taken a different course. Others are seasoned, hardened by war. Their leader is Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced pilot with hundreds of flight hours behind him. The sun is shining, the sea below is calm. Nothing about this day suggests it will end in mystery. The flight departs in the early afternoon. The plan is simple: fly east from Florida, practice bombing runs over a set of shoals in the Bahamas, then turn north, west, and finally back toward base. A triangle of their own, carved in the sky. A mission expected to last a few hours. But as the aircraft sweep eastward, something goes wrong. Static begins to hiss across the radios. Reports are garbled, incomplete. And then the first chilling fragments of confusion begin to leak through. This is Flight Leader. Both of my compasses are out. Imagine the terror in that cockpit. In an era before GPS, before satellite navigation, a compass was life itself. To lose one was troubling. To lose both, impossible, unthinkable. And yet Taylor reports exactly that. His instruments have failed. His men rely on him, their commander, and now he is blind in the sky. Hours pass. The sun lowers. The radio transcripts from that day read like the unraveling of reason itself. One pilot, his voice crackling with static, insists they are over the Florida Keys. Another claims they are somewhere near the Bahamas. Taylor cannot be sure. His confidence falters. He changes headings, then changes them again. The 5 planes weave a desperate pattern across the sky, each turn meant to bring them home but instead carrying them deeper into uncertainty. At base, radio operators strain to hear through the static. Words break apart like wreckage in a storm. We can't tell where we are. Everything looks strange, even the ocean. We may be lost in space. Lost in space. Not just lost at sea, but somewhere beyond, as if the pilots felt the sky itself had betrayed them. Back at Fort Lauderdale, darkness falls. Searchlights sweep the airstrip. Operators plead into microphones for the men to climb higher, to break through the storm, to conserve fuel. The last words come through around 7 p.m., haunting in their resignation. All planes close up tight. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. Then silence. 5 aircraft, 19 men, vanish into the night. Not a single scrap of wreckage is ever recovered. But the triangle was not done. That very night, a rescue mission is launched, a PBM Mariner flying boat, a massive plane with 13 men aboard. It lifts into the air, engines rumbling, lights cutting through the dusk. For 20 minutes, its progress is tracked. Then it too disappears. Witnesses on the horizon report seeing a flash, an explosion. Perhaps it suffered a fuel leak, a known hazard for this model. But again, no wreckage is ever found. 32 men are lost in a single day, claimed by a sea that offers no answers. And so the legend of Flight 19 is born. The Navy's investigation leaves more questions than answers. How could all 5 planes suffer instrument failure at once? Why did Taylor, experienced as he was, not trust his men when they insisted they were near Florida? Why did the Mariner explode, vanish, leave not a trace on the waves? Officially, the incident is blamed on navigational error compounded by Taylor's disorientation. But even the final report ends with a line so unsatisfying, so haunting, that it has echoed ever since. Cause unknown. Imagine being the families waiting that night. Mothers, fathers, wives gathered by radios, listening for news. First told that the flight is overdue. Then told that it may be lost. Then told, nothing. Silence. The sea offers no debris, no bodies, no oil slicks, nothing to mourn, nothing to bury. Just the void. This is what makes the Bermuda Triangle different. Planes and ships vanish all over the world. Storms claim them, eras sink them, time erases them. But here, in this expanse between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, they vanish with nothing left behind. No wreckage washing ashore. No signals of distress preserved. Just silence, as if the ocean has swallowed them whole. The Flight 19 disaster captures the world's imagination in a way earlier tales had not. Newspapers splash headlines across front pages. Navy planes mysteriously disappear. Journalists lean into the strangeness of the final radio calls. Soon, writers begin to connect the dots. Other disappearances in the same waters, other ships that never returned. The phrase, Bermuda Triangle, is not yet coined, but its shape begins to take form in the collective imagination. Close your eyes for a moment. You are there, on one of those planes, the cockpit cramped, the air thick with sweat and fear. The gauges tremble, spinning needles pointing nowhere. Outside the canopy, clouds gather, thick and featureless. The ocean below is endless and shifting, no land in sight. You trust your commander, and yet his voice wavers. He turns the plane, then turns again. The horizon tilts. Hours pass, fuel drains, and the sun sinks into darkness. You grip the controls and wonder, not whether you will make it home, but where you will go when the ocean finally claims you. This is not simply history. It is an experience, one that the men of Flight 19 lived until the very end. And their end, like the triangle itself, refuses to be explained. Some theories are practical. Sudden storms forming along the Gulf Stream. Magnetic anomalies confusing compasses. Human error, amplified by fear and fatigue. Others drift into the strange, dimensional rifts, time warps, extraterrestrial abduction. Each explanation, rational or not, carries with it the same uneasy truth: the men are gone, and the ocean keeps their secret. And so the triangle earns its reputation. It is no longer a vague stretch of dangerous water whispered about by sailors. With Flight 19, it becomes a place marked by modern tragedy, by technology itself failing in the sky. From that night onward, it is not just the haunt of superstitious mariners. It is a mystery that belongs to the age of radar, radio, and warplanes, a modern enigma that refuses to bow to reason. As the waves close behind us, you can almost hear the echoes of their engines, fading into the night. The searchlights sweep the darkness, finding nothing. The radios fall silent. The sea is calm once more, indifferent, eternal. And so we sail onward deeper into the triangle, where other stories await, tales not of planes, but of ships found adrift, crews vanished, meals untouched. Ghosts on the water. The night deepens as we drift farther across the triangle, the story of Flight 19 still clinging to us like sea mist. The ocean feels heavier now, as if it remembers every vanished voice, every last radio call that ended in silence. Yet the triangle holds not only stories of aircraft, but of vessels, wooden and steel alike, that left port proud and certain, only to be found adrift, empty and mute. These are the ghost ships, those silent wanderers that seem to glide out of the fog not carrying life, but absence. Imagine first the Mary Celeste, though her fate lies beyond the triangle proper. Still, her story is often swept into the same net of mystery, her name forever paired with the notion of a ship without a crew. December 1872, she is found drifting off the Azores by the British brig Dei Grazia. The Mary Celeste is seaworthy, her cargo intact, her provisions untouched. The captain's log is up to date. Yet not a soul remains aboard. Lifeboats are missing, but there are no signs of a storm, no signs of violence. The crew, 10 souls in all, have vanished into the Atlantic as if erased. The mystery of her emptiness echoes through the centuries, and though scholars point out that she never passed through the Bermuda Triangle, her name is tethered to it by association, as if any sea that devours crews and leaves behind hollow shells must somehow belong to the same shadowed map. But the Triangle has its own fleet of phantoms. Consider the Carol A. Deering, a 5-masted schooner, a towering vessel of the early 20th century. In January 1921, she is found run aground off the coast of North Carolina, her sails still set, her galley prepared for a meal. The lifeboats are gone, but the crew, gone too, without a word, without a trace. The Coast Guard investigates, but no answer is ever found. Was it mutiny, piracy, a storm that swallowed them? The official reports say nothing certain. What remains is the image, a grand vessel standing proud yet utterly lifeless, a stage with its actors vanished. And then, there are whispers of smaller ships, less famous but no less haunting. Fishing boats found adrift with nets still cast, the smell of fresh catch mingling with the salt air, yet no fishermen to haul them in. Yachts discovered floating, their radios crackling faintly, as if someone had just stepped away for a moment. In each case, the ship itself survives, intact, bearing mute testimony to something unseen that stole only the living. Picture one of these ghost ships as we approach it now, in the mind's eye. The sea is calm, a strange calm, almost oily in its stillness. A shape appears ahead, rocking gently, its sails tattered but upright. As we draw nearer, the details emerge, ropes hanging loose, a wheel turning lazily as if guided by some absent hand. You board her. The deck creaks beneath your weight. Below, in the galley, a meal lies waiting, bread half sliced, a pot still warm. But the crew is gone. You call out, your voice echoing off empty timbers, and only the sea answers back. It is this image, more than wreckage, more than storms, that seizes the imagination. For a wreck can be explained. A sunken ship is claimed by water and time. But a ship left whole, sound, and utterly deserted, what explanation suffices for that? Mutiny, some say. Illness, others. But mutiny leaves blood, illness leaves bodies. These ships are left as though their men were plucked away by unseen fingers, leaving behind nothing but silence. In the Triangle, these stories collect like driftwood. Each new report rekindles the old, weaving a fabric of dread. Writers in the mid-20th century, eager to sell paperbacks and tabloid columns, seized upon them, linking every deserted ship to the cursed waters of the Triangle. Even those far beyond its borders were pulled into its mythology, because the theme was too delicious to resist. Ships without men, seas without mercy, the ghost fleet of the Atlantic. But pause for a moment. Step back from the myth and imagine the reality. A schooner, battered by sudden squalls, her crew overwhelmed, forced to abandon ship. A yacht struck by rogue waves, its crew swept overboard while the vessel survives. These explanations are plausible, logical. And yet, when you stand upon such a vessel and feel the emptiness pressing in, when you smell the ghosts of meals unfinished, when you hear the creak of timbers that should be busy with life, logic feels fragile, almost inadequate. It is the absence that unnerves us most. A storm is violent but honest. A wreck is tragic but visible. But a ghost ship offers no witness, no answer. It drifts in silence, and in that silence, our imaginations awaken. Was it mutiny? Madness? Something older, darker, more patient than storm or wave. And so, ghost ships remain at the heart of the Triangle's legend. They remind us that the sea is not always a graveyard. Sometimes, it is an empty stage, the actors stolen away, leaving only props and questions. And as we sail on, leaving these phantom vessels behind us, the radios of pilots begin to whisper again, filling the air with static and broken voices. Our next encounter with the Triangle's restless strangeness. The sea has a way of keeping its secrets, holding them in the dark folds of its depths. But the sky above the Triangle, that is a different kind of mystery. For even when the waters appear calm, the air itself seems restless, as though charged with unseen currents. Sailors may tell you of ghost ships, of decks abandoned and meals left unfinished, but pilots whisper of stranger things still, of voices cut short, radios that hiss with static, and instruments that contradict the evidence of their own eyes. It is in the airwaves, invisible and fragile, that the Bermuda Triangle often bares its teeth. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine being in the cockpit of a small plane in the 1950s. The sea glimmers below, a vast sheet of blue glass. Your instruments hum softly, a comfort in their predictability. You press the transmitter button and speak, your voice steady, expecting the familiar crackle and reply. But instead, only static answers. A thick, rising hiss, as if some unseen hand is dragging a knife across a sheet of tin. You adjust the frequency, try again. Static. Louder now, insistent, almost alive. Then, just as suddenly, silence. The kind of silence that makes you glance at your co-pilot with a look you don't quite want to name. This is one of the most common reports in the Triangle, the sudden collapse of communication. Pilots describe entire radio channels vanishing into white noise. Voices fade mid-sentence, clipped off as if swallowed by the air. Search operators on land call into the void, hearing nothing but the faint ghost of static. In some cases, the last words that do make it through are garbled, eerie, fragments of distress cut off before explanation can come. And it is not only radios that falter. Compasses spin, needles jittering like trapped insects. A pilot glances down and finds his heading shifting wildly, north dissolving into west, then east, then nowhere at all. Imagine gripping the yoke as the sky remains calm, the sea unchanged, yet the instruments insist you are spiraling into madness. What would you trust, your eyes, or the machines built to guide you? Consider the story of Bruce Jernan, a private pilot in 1970, flying his Beechcraft Bonanza from the Bahamas toward Florida. As he climbed, a strange cloud formed ahead, unlike any he had ever seen, not a towering thunderhead, but a tunnel, a perfectly circular formation stretching into the sky. Against his better instincts, he entered. Inside, radio signals failed, compasses spun, and the world outside blurred into a gray haze. He described it later as if space itself had folded, the sense of time slipping loose. When he emerged, it was as if no time had passed at all, and yet he found himself hundreds of kilometers farther than he should have been, his flight compressed, the airwaves eerily silent. Scientists might call it a weather phenomenon, perhaps a rare type of storm formation, but to Jernan it felt like the Triangle itself had taken hold of him, warping not just air but time. Other accounts echo this disquiet. Commercial pilots, steady professionals with reputations to guard, speak of radios that go dead for long minutes, only to crackle back to life as if nothing had happened. Naval crews report distress calls received faintly, almost whisper-like, from ships and planes long declared lost. There are even legends of hearing voices on open frequencies, fragments of conversations as though trapped in the atmosphere, replaying again and again like echoes of vanished men. Imagine the dread of such a moment, to hear your own distress call bleeding back at you through static, as if the air itself is mocking your fear. Theories abound. Some scientists suggest ionospheric disturbances, invisible waves of charged particles that bend or absorb radio signals. Others point to magnetic anomalies, the strange behavior of Earth's geomagnetic field in this region. Skeptics remind us that radios in the mid-20th century were primitive compared to today, prone to interference, easily confused by weather or solar activity. And yet, even in modern times, with GPS satellites and digital communications, reports continue of signals failing, voices breaking apart, compasses refusing to settle. Let us return for a moment to that image of Flight 19, the Lost Avengers of 1945. Remember the radio transcripts, their voices fading, breaking, dissolving into static? It was not only their navigation that failed but their ability to reach out across the airwaves, to send their fear homeward. The silence that followed was as much a weapon as the sea itself. And the rescue plane, too, vanished into static before disappearing forever. Think of the air as an ocean of its own, filled with invisible currents, signals swimming like fish, fragile and fleeting. In the Bermuda Triangle, those currents seem twisted, disrupted, as if something beneath the surface pulls at them. A storm unseen. A hand of interference. Or perhaps something older, stranger, an echo of a world beyond our own brushing against the wires of our machines. And so, the airwaves of the triangle remain haunted. Haunted by static, by silence, by voices cut short. Haunted by the knowledge that sometimes the most terrifying thing is not a storm or a wave but the sudden absence of sound, the radio gone dead in your hand. For what are we, adrift in sea or sky, without our voices to call for help? The triangle knows this. It silences them. And as we sail deeper into its heart, we begin to understand that this mystery is not just one of seas and storms, but of magnetism itself, the restless, unseen pull of the earth that bends our compasses, that turns north into chaos. The air is still heavy with static as we drift onward, the memory of broken voices and dead radios lingering like ghosts in the wires. But as strange as those disturbances may seem, they are only the beginning. For long before radios hummed and crackled, sailors feared something older, stranger, and even more disquieting in these waters: the unsettling pull of the compass needle, the invisible tug of Earth's magnetism that seemed, here in the triangle, to twist and betray. Imagine the deck of a wooden galleon in the 16th century. The sails are taut with wind, the ocean a restless mirror around you. The helmsman squints at his compass, that fragile miracle of iron and lodestone, the one device that promises order in the chaos of the sea. Normally, it points north with a confidence as steady as the stars. But tonight something is wrong. The needle quivers, jerks, swings too far east. The helmsman frowns, mutters a prayer, and steadies the wheel. Yet the compass will not settle. The stars above promise one heading, the needle another. To follow one is to betray the other. Which do you trust? Which leads to land, and which to ruin? This disquiet, the failure of the compass to obey, lies at the heart of the triangle's legend. Even Christopher Columbus himself, in that first daring voyage across the Atlantic in 1492, noted it. In his journal, he recorded how the compass needle behaved strangely as his fleet sailed through waters near what we now call the Bermuda Triangle. The needle no longer pointed to magnetic north but seemed to drift toward true north, an alignment rare and unsettling. His crew, already anxious at venturing into seas that no European had charted, whispered of omens, of curses, of the ocean itself conspiring to lead them astray. Columbus, ever the cautious leader, concealed the truth from them, lest panic ignite mutiny. It may seem a small thing, true north, magnetic north, a matter of degrees. But to a sailor those degrees are life itself. A ship guided a few points astray over hundreds of miles might find itself not at its intended harbor but dashed upon unseen reefs, or adrift in waters with no landfall for weeks. The compass is trust. And here, in the triangle, trust wavers. Over the centuries, countless navigators reported the same unease. Compasses spinning as though possessed. Needles aligning with no land in sight. Instruments contradicting the horizon, insisting upon turns that led only into darkness. Some accounts are apocryphal, retold by writers eager for mystery. Others are preserved in logbooks, terse and matter-of-fact, but no less chilling. By the mid-20th century, scientists began to wonder whether there was truth to these tales. The Earth's magnetic field is not constant. It shifts, drifts, bends with the restless currents of molten iron deep within our planet's core. In most places, magnetic north, the point to which a compass is drawn, does not align perfectly with true north, the axis of the Earth's spin. The difference, known as declination, varies across the globe. But there are regions, rare and scattered, where the two align perfectly. Sailors who entered such zones centuries ago, unknowing, would find their compasses suddenly obedient to true north, yet disobedient to expectation. In their eyes, the instrument had betrayed them. The Bermuda Triangle, it is said, is one of those rare places. A zone where compass madness is not the work of demons or fate, but of geophysics. Yet even so, the legend grows, because the effect is felt not just in quiet misalignments but in sudden, dramatic shifts. Stories abound of compasses that whirl wildly, spinning without direction, as though caught in invisible storms. Picture a pilot in the 1960s, flying a small craft over Bahamian waters. The sun glitters off the waves, the sky is cloudless. He glances at his compass, it points north. Then, with no warning, the needle begins to spin, whirling full circles, faster and faster, until it is a blur of motion. The altimeter hums steadily, the engine purrs, but the compass dances like a mad thing. For minutes it spins, until at last it slows and settles, pointing not where it should, but somewhere entirely different. By the time the pilot regains his bearings, he is miles off course, low on fuel, and forced to land with a shaking hand. His story, told later, is one of awe and unease, a brush with something beyond explanation. Such accounts have fueled speculation for decades. Could the triangle be a node of geomagnetic disturbance, a place where Earth's invisible field bends into strange eddies? Could submerged mineral deposits, vast iron-rich mountains buried beneath the seabed, tug at compasses like unseen lodestones? Some theories even imagine disruptions caused by tectonic shifts, by fractures in the Earth's crust where magnetic flux leaks outward like smoke from a hidden fire. And then there are the more imaginative ideas that the triangle is a gateway, a dimensional rift where natural laws twist, that magnetic forces here are manipulated by remnants of Atlantis, their lost technology still humming in the deep, that extraterrestrials use the region as a beacon, drawing ships and planes into their grasp. Such theories strain credulity, and yet they endure, because in the silence of vanished ships, absence demands to be filled. Pause for a moment and imagine what it feels like to stand upon a deck at night, the stars wheeling overhead, the compass trembling in your hand. You know the sea is vast, indifferent, eager to swallow mistakes. You know the compass is your only anchor, your only voice of direction. And then, in a single moment, that voice falters. The needle spins. The trust shatters. You are alone with the stars, uncertain if they too are to be trusted. That is the terror of magnetic anomalies, not violence, not storm, but betrayal. Even in modern times, with GPS satellites whispering coordinates from orbit, the myth persists. Pilots still report strange fluctuations, sudden drops in instruments, errors that vanish when checked again. Engineers dismiss them as glitches, atmospheric interference, human error. But the stories pile high, like driftwood against a rocky shore. And whether caused by physics or fear, the effect is the same. In the triangle, navigation feels fragile, uncertain, treacherous. It is no wonder, then, that so many disappearances are laid at the feet of the compass. A degree of error here, a shift of heading there, compounded by currents and storms, and a ship can vanish without a trace. Yet to those who sail through, the feeling is more personal, more insidious. It is not simply the ocean that threatens them, but the very instruments designed to protect them. And so we sail onward, deeper still, leaving behind the trembling compass and the ghostly pull of magnetism. Ahead lies the ocean itself, the depths that open like a wound in the earth's crust, the Puerto Rico trench yawning black beneath the waves. If the sky holds mysteries of static and spinning needles, then the sea below hides its own, wrecks swallowed whole, voices silenced forever in the deep. Beneath the restless surface of the Bermuda Triangle, beneath the shimmer of waves and the flicker of compasses gone astray, lies a realm more secretive still. For all the talk of ghost ships and vanishing planes, the ocean itself is perhaps the triangle's greatest accomplice. If the sky confuses, if the airwaves distort, then the sea below erases, swallowing wrecks whole, keeping them hidden in trenches so deep that even the most advanced machines struggle to touch them. To understand the triangle, you must sink with me now, down into its depths, into the darkness of the Atlantic's hidden canyons. Imagine drifting on a calm day over waters as clear as glass, the sunlight striking down through turquoise. For a few dozen feet, you see color and light, coral reefs, fish darting in flashes of silver and gold. But then the blue deepens, thickens, and soon it becomes an endless void. The seabed here does not slope gently. It drops away like a cliff into the abyss. The Puerto Rico Trench, to the south of the triangle's boundary, is the deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean, plunging more than 8 kilometers into blackness. If you placed Mount Everest in it, the peak would vanish beneath the waves. Ships lost here need no storms, no curses. They simply vanish into a graveyard from which no body is ever returned. The trench is not the only chasm. Throughout the triangle, sudden shifts in the seabed create deep channels and steep drop-offs. The Bahamas, with their pale, sandy shallows, are edged by sudden cuts called blue holes, underwater sinkholes plunging hundreds of meters down. A diver exploring the reefs might swim over a sandy shelf one moment, then find themselves suspended above a vertical tunnel the next, darkness yawning below like a mouth. Such formations are natural, carved by geology and tides over millennia, yet in the imagination they feel deliberate, as though the sea has laid traps for the unwary. Consider what happens when a ship founders here. In shallower seas, wrecks leave traces, splintered timbers, oil slicks, bodies carried ashore. In the triangle, the currents of the Gulf Streams sweep debris swiftly away, dragging it northward at speeds of several knots. What little escapes the current sinks, vanishing into trenches so deep that light cannot follow. A wreck in the Puerto Rico Trench is as irretrievable as one on the far side of the moon. The sea does not merely claim its victims. It conceals them utterly. And this concealment breeds stories. For when no wreckage is found, when no oil slick mars the waves, when no bodies wash up, imagination rushes to fill the void. Writers speak of Atlantis, of alien bases, of gateways into other realms. Yet the ocean's silence is explanation enough. It has always been a master of erasure. Think of the Titanic, lying at 12,500 feet, undiscovered for over 70 years, and that with one of the world's largest search efforts devoted to her. Now consider smaller vessels, humble fishing boats, fragile planes, scattered across a graveyard even deeper. They are gone, not because of malice, but because the sea is vast and we are small. Still, mystery lingers, because the sea does not always hide gently. It groans. It shifts. Submarine crews passing through the Puerto Rico Trench have reported hearing unearthly sounds, low rumbles, metallic creaks, and strange moaning tones carry through the water. Some are natural, the sounds of tectonic plates grinding against each other, of underwater landslides sending tons of rock tumbling into the abyss. Others remain unexplained, logged in naval records as unidentified biological or mechanical anomalies. To the human ear, pressed against the hull in silence, they sound like voices rising from the dark, like the ocean itself is trying to speak. And perhaps, in a way, it is. The seabed beneath the triangle is restless, marked by seismic activity. Earthquakes shake the deep, releasing energy that ripples upward through the water. Imagine a tremor opening a fissure on the ocean floor, swallowing a wreck hole in seconds. Or a landslide triggering a wave that towers 30 meters high before striking down a vessel with no time for a distress call. The depths are not passive. They are alive, shifting, erasing, remaking the seascape again and again. But let us linger in imagination a little longer. Picture descending into the trench in a submersible, lights cutting through black water. At first you see little particles drifting like snow in a void. Then the walls of the trench appear, sheer cliffs of basalt, scarred by ancient eruptions. Strange creatures drift past, pale and luminous, adapted to pressures that would crush a human in seconds. The deeper you go, the heavier the silence becomes, broken only by the hum of the vessel and the occasional groan of metal straining under pressure. Down here, at depths beyond 25,000 feet, the weight of the ocean above you is nearly unimaginable. If a plane lies here, if a ship rests on these cliffs, it is not a wreck to be salvaged. It is an artifact sealed away forever, a secret the ocean has claimed. And this, too, is part of the Triangle's enigma. Its waters are not unusual in their violence. Storms rage everywhere on Earth. They are unusual in their ability to erase. A tragedy here leaves no remains, only questions. Families are left without closure. Investigators are left with silence. And silence breeds myth. Think back to the Carol A. Deering, her crew vanished, her hull found intact. Some say mutiny, some piracy. But had she sunk entirely, leaving no trace, what legends would she have inspired? The Triangle specializes in such erasures. Ships do not founder here, they vanish. Planes do not crash, they dissolve. It is the ocean itself, the fathomless trenches, that make the disappearance so absolute. The surface of the sea, calm or stormy, is a mask. Beneath it, the abyss waits. And so we drift onward, deeper still into the heart of the Triangle, where the weather itself joins the conspiracy, where storms form with sudden fury, hammering the sea into chaos and making the disappearance of vessels all the more inevitable. Ahead of us, the sky darkens, clouds boiling on the horizon. The calm is ending. The storms are about to speak. The waters calm for only a moment after our descent into the abyss, as if the ocean itself has taken a breath. But on the horizon, the sky begins to change. What was once blue and steady darkens with alarming speed. The clouds gather first as small towers, puffed white against the sun, innocent enough. Yet in the tropics, innocence never lingers. In minutes, those towers rise higher, darker, their bases swelling into anvils that flatten and spread. The air grows heavy. The wind shifts, carrying with it the first faint taste of rain. This is the other face of the Triangle, the sudden birth of storms, the violent unmasking of the Caribbean sky. For centuries, sailors in these waters feared not ghosts, but weather. They had reason. This stretch of ocean lies within what meteorologists grimly call Hurricane Alley. The warm waters of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico are perfect fuel for storms. Winds rolling off the coast of Africa gather strength as they cross the Atlantic, feeding on heat, moisture, and momentum until they become cyclones of unimaginable force. By the time they reach the Triangle, they are towering engines of destruction, spinning walls of cloud, wind, and water that can erase ships and planes as efficiently as any abyss. But what makes the Triangle particularly treacherous is not only the size of these storms, but their speed. In these waters, weather changes with little warning. A horizon that appears calm at dawn may, by noon, seethe with thunderheads. For a pilot or sailor in the age before radar, these shifts were ambushes. One moment a steady breeze, the next a gale. Lightning cracks the horizon, waves mount like walls, and the ocean transforms into a killing ground. Imagine being caught in such a storm without warning. The sea rises beneath you, swells smashing against the hull, rigging shrieking as wind tears at canvas. The rain blinds, needle-sharp, lashing skin and wood alike. Lightning flashes, revealing for a moment the chaos around you, mountains of water, black clouds spinning in madness, and then darkness returns, leaving only the roar of wind. A ship here is not just battered. It is dwarfed, made insignificant. And when she founders, the sea wastes no time. The Gulf Stream sweeps wreckage away, scattering evidence, erasing the scene within hours. Accounts of ships lost in sudden squalls dot maritime history. In 1918, the USS Cyclops, a massive collier with over 300 men aboard, vanished in the Triangle without a distress call. Some say it was sabotage, others structural failure. But many point to the storms. Witnesses along the expected route spoke of sudden, violent weather in those days, clouds that rose without warning, seas that churned with abnormal fury. The Cyclops, heavy with ore, might have been overwhelmed in minutes. Yet with no survivors and no wreckage, the storm becomes not explanation but myth. Hurricanes, too, have played their part. The Triangle lies directly in the path of some of the most destructive in recorded history. These storms do not just batter, they devour. Consider the Great Hurricane of 1780, which killed more than 20,000 across the Caribbean. Ships vanished by the dozens, entire fleets erased. Survivors told of seas rising as if the ocean itself had leapt upon them, of wind shrieking with such force that bark was stripped from trees, flesh from bone. A hurricane in open water offers no escape. You cannot outrun it. You can only pray that your vessel holds. Many in the Triangle did not. Even modern technology cannot always save us. Radar and satellites can track the vast cyclones, but smaller storms, sudden waterspouts, squalls, microbursts, still strike without warning. Pilots report walls of cloud materializing out of clear skies, their aircraft rattled by winds that seem to come from every direction at once. Sailors find themselves surrounded by towering columns of water, tornadoes at sea, spinning with enough force to capsize vessels in seconds. Let us pause and step inside such a moment. You are a pilot, cruising above calm seas, sun glinting off the waves. Ahead, a line of clouds appears, unremarkable. You press forward. Within minutes, the sky closes in, visibility dropping to nothing. Rain lashes, wind batters, instruments flicker. Lightning splits the cockpit into stark black and white. Your compass spins, your altimeter jumps. You reach for the radio, but static answers. You are caught not in one storm, but in many, systems colliding, forces greater than any machine. To those who survive, it is chaos. To those who vanish, it is legend. And so storms become part of the Triangle's reputation. Rational voices remind us that ships and planes lost here are victims not of mystery, but of weather. Hurricanes explain the silence. Squalls explain the suddenness. And yet, for those who believe, the storms themselves take on an almost supernatural quality. How can clouds rise so quickly, winds shift so violently, seas consume so utterly? Is it mere physics, or is the Triangle a crucible where natural forces amplify, sharpen, and conspire? In truth, the weather here is extraordinary. The clash of currents, the heat of tropical waters, the speed of the Gulf Stream, all combine to create a theater of volatility. Hurricanes born thousands of miles away find their fiercest strength here. Squalls rise faster, storms linger longer. This is no ordinary sea. It is a forge of weather, a place where sky and water wage constant war. And as we sail deeper into the Triangle, the storm does not pass. The clouds only thicken, the waves mount higher. Lightning flashes again, but this time it illuminates not only rain and wind, but something larger, stranger, the rise of waves so immense, so towering, that they dwarf even the hurricane's fury. Ahead of us waits the ocean's other weapon, rogue waves, giants of the sea, striking without mercy. The storm does not break. Instead, it mutates. The sky still rumbles, lightning still lashes the horizon, but something even more ancient, more primal, stirs in the sea itself. You can feel it before you see it, the swell beneath your feet growing heavier, the rhythm of the waves shifting into something unnatural. The ocean, vast and indifferent, begins to rise in singular, monstrous pulses, as if some giant beneath the surface has turned in its sleep. Sailors know this dread. They whisper of it in every port, in every era. Rogue waves. Killer waves. Giants of the sea. For centuries, mariners spoke of them in tones that skeptics dismissed as exaggeration or drunken fancy. Tales of walls of water 30 meters high, rising without storm, striking from nowhere, and vanishing just as swiftly. Official science for generations denied their existence. A wave of such height, it was said, would require too much energy to form spontaneously. They were myth, sailors' yarns, excuses for wrecks. But the sea never lies for long. In 1995, off the coast of Norway, an oil platform known as Draupner recorded the incontrovertible, a single, solitary wave rising 26 meters, towering above the surrounding sea. The myth was real. The giants walked the water after all. Now imagine that wave in the Bermuda Triangle. Picture the scene, a freighter cutting steadily through mild swells, her crew relaxed, the horizon calm. Without warning, the lookout cries out, his voice ragged with disbelief. Ahead, not far, the sea bulges upward into a moving wall. It is not a swell to be ridden. It is a cliff of water, steep and curling, taller than the ship's deck. The freighter has no chance to turn, no time to react. The wave strikes broadside, tearing containers from the deck, smashing steel like toys. The ship heels, groans, and is swallowed whole. And when the wave passes, the sea returns to its rhythm, as if nothing had happened. The wreck sinks silently. No storm need be blamed. The wave itself was the executioner. The triangle, lying in the path of colliding currents, is a natural breeding ground for such anomalies. Here, the Gulf Stream rushes northward like a river within the sea, meeting swells from the open Atlantic. Add in the fury of sudden squalls, the shifting winds of hurricanes, and the steep drop-offs of the seabed, and the conditions align perfectly. Energy accumulates, collides, and at unpredictable moments, focuses into a single, monstrous surge. One wave, unheralded, catastrophic. Sailors in the Triangle have told of being lifted into the sky, their vessels perched atop mountains of water, only to crash seconds later into troughs so deep the horizon vanished. Survivors describe being thrown into chaos, masts snapping, engines flooding, decks swept clean by water so heavy it might as well have been iron. Some lived to tell of it. Many did not. For every survivor's tale, there are ships whose final moments can only be guessed at, their last fight against the towering wall of water witnessed by no one. Think of the USS Cyclops again, vanished in 1918 with over 300 men aboard. No distress call, no wreckage. She was vast, a steel collier nearly 550 feet long. To be destroyed outright would have taken a force of staggering scale. A rogue wave fits the silence. One strike broadside, one roll too far, and she would be gone in minutes. And the sea, shifting restlessly above the Puerto Rico trench, would erase the rest. But the terror of rogue waves lies not only in their strength. It lies in their invisibility. Satellites now confirm them, radar sometimes glimpses them, but to those who sail, they remain unpredictable. You cannot forecast them with certainty. You cannot prepare. They arrive alone or in pairs, born not from storm but from chaos, from the hidden mathematics of the sea. To face one is to face inevitability. If your ship is small, you are crushed. If it is large, you prey. Let us place ourselves there, for a moment, in the heart of the triangle, on a yacht in calm seas. The sails are slack, the water glassy. You recline, lulled by the soft rhythm. And then, in the corner of your eye, a swell begins to rise, darker, sharper. You sit upright, heart stuttering. The swell grows higher, impossibly high, blotting the horizon. The mast, tall as a building, suddenly looks like a child's toy beside it. The yacht climbs, tilts, then flips, mast snapping like a matchstick. The wave passes, the sea stills, and the wreckage scatters in silence. From shore there is no trace. From history, only another entry in the list of ships. Lost in fair weather. This phrase appears again and again in records of the Triangle. Lost in fair weather. Not storm. Not hurricane. Simply gone. To believers, it suggests supernatural theft, ships spirited away by forces beyond reason. To skeptics, it is evidence of rogue waves, of freak seas that leave behind no clues but absence. Both agree on the horror. Both recognize the ocean's indifference. And yet, the giants of the sea inspire awe as well as dread. There is something mythic in them, something that connects to our oldest fears of the deep. Ancient Norsemen spoke of the moraine, waves like mountains summoned by sea gods. Japanese sailors told of Oyashionami, great waves that swallowed fleets whole. Across cultures, the memory of rogue waves lingered long before science admitted them. In the Bermuda Triangle, they are not myth but probability, born of geography and current, sharpened by storm. Now picture the silence after such an encounter. The wave passes. The horizon is empty once more. The storm clouds break, the sun pierces through, and the sea looks calm, almost innocent. No debris floats. No cries carry across the water. To anyone arriving later, it is as though the ship or plane had never been. And so the story becomes legend. Another entry in the log of the Triangle. Another name etched into absence. We sail onward, past these towering walls of water, our minds still reeling at the thought of their suddenness. Yet the ocean holds other secrets still. For not all that rises from the deep is wave and water. Sometimes, the danger comes not from above but from beneath, strange forces stirring in the seabed, invisible until the moment they erupt. Ahead lies another theory, another weapon of the Triangle, vast deposits of gas locked beneath the ocean floor, waiting for release, waiting to transform the sea itself into a grave. The sea grows quieter now, as if it has tired of showing us its fury. The towering giants, those rogue waves that rose like liquid mountains, sink back into memory, and once again the horizon looks deceptively calm. Yet calmness in the Triangle is never innocent. For beneath the surface, in the darkness of the seabed, other forces stir, forces invisible to the eye, but no less deadly. If storms strike from above and waves tower from the surface, then here, the very water itself can betray you. This is the realm of the methane gas theory. Imagine the seafloor of the Triangle not as flat sand, but as a restless landscape, scarred and pitted. Beneath it lie vast deposits of methane hydrates, ice-like crystals that trap gas within cages of water molecules. They sit in silence, locked away for millennia by pressure and cold. But these cages are fragile. A shift in temperature, a landslide along the continental shelf, a tremor in the Earth's crust, and the hydrates destabilize. The gas escapes, rising in colossal bubbles through the water. And when it does, the ocean itself changes. The theory is simple, chilling, and almost beautiful in its efficiency. When methane erupts, it lowers the density of the water. A ship floating upon it suddenly finds no buoyancy beneath its keel. It does not founder. It does not fight. It simply sinks, as though dropped into air. One moment, steady and upright. The next, gone, swallowed without warning. No distress call. No chance for lifeboats. Only silence, and then the sea closes over as though nothing had happened. Scientists have tested the principle in controlled tanks. They place model ships on water, release methane from beneath, and watch as the vessels plunge in seconds, disappearing with almost surreal speed. What these models demonstrate on a small scale, the Triangle might enact on a grand one. Entire ships erased not by storm or wave, but by chemistry. And what of planes? The theory extends further still. Methane rising into the air, venting in great invisible plumes, could choke engines, disrupt combustion, or cause explosions. A pilot flying low across such a plume might find his craft faltering, sputtering, then plunging. Survivors would be few. Wreckage would vanish into the depths. And so, another entry in the Triangle's litany of disappearances would be written. The seabed here provides the stage for such events. The Blake Plateau, the Bahama Banks, the Puerto Rico Trench, all are regions of geological instability, with slopes prone to landslides and fissures where gas might escape. Sonar scans have revealed pockmarks on the seafloor, vast craters where methane bursts are believed to have occurred in the past. Some measure hundreds of meters across. To stand on the surface above one as it opened would be to stand upon a trapdoor, waiting to fall. Picture yourself aboard a freighter in these waters. The sea is calm, the crew relaxed. Then, with no warning, the ship shudders, not from collision, not from storm, but from the strange, sluggish way the water itself seems to soften. The bow dips, the stern follows, and within moments, you are no longer afloat but plunging downward. The deck tilts, men shout, and seawater surges over the rails. There is no time to send a signal. No time to lower a boat. In minutes, the ocean swallows all. Above, the horizon looks calm once more. A bubble bursts, and history records another mystery. Skeptics caution that large-scale methane releases are rare, their timing unpredictable, and that no definitive case links them directly to disappearances in the Triangle. Yet the evidence of their possibility is strong. In Siberia, craters hundreds of feet wide mark the sites of methane eruptions on land. Beneath the sea, the process is less visible, but no less real. The Triangle, with its restless geology, lies in a zone where such outbursts may be more than theory. And so, science finds itself in a strange position. For once, it offers an explanation as dramatic as the myth. Ships vanishing in calm seas, planes dropping from clear skies, these are not beyond physics, but part of it. To those who seek rational answers, methane provides comfort. To those who seek mystery, it adds only another layer, for the thought that the ocean itself can betray you without storm or wave is, in its own way, as unsettling as any curse. But listen closely. The sea around us is never still for long. The bubbles that rise here are not the only whispers of the deep. Legends say there are older ruins buried beneath, remnants of a city swallowed long before Columbus crossed the Atlantic. Stones shaped by hands, not nature. Patterns carved where no human should have walked. And if the Triangle's geology can erase, can it not also preserve? Ahead of us lies another story, older than any Navy flight or schooner, a story of a civilization lost beneath the waves, a legend tied forever to this stretch of ocean, Atlantis. The bubbles fade, the ocean's surface settles, and silence returns once more. But silence in these waters is never empty. Beneath it linger stories older than compasses, older than maps, stories whispered in every age about a city that vanished beneath the sea. We have spoken of storms and rogue waves, of compasses and gas eruptions, but in the Bermuda Triangle, there is one myth that looms larger than all others, a myth of civilization itself, lost and waiting in the depths. The name is spoken with a kind of reverence, a mixture of skepticism and awe, Atlantis. The legend begins not in the Caribbean, but in ancient Greece. Around 360 BC, the philosopher Plato wrote of a mighty island empire that once thrived beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis, he said, was vast, powerful, and advanced beyond all other nations. But pride undid it. The gods, angered by its hubris, sent earthquakes and floods that swallowed the island in a single night. Ever since, dreamers and explorers have searched for it, believing Plato's tale to be not mere allegory but memory, a record of something real. And so the story drifted across centuries, woven into mythologies, reinterpreted by mystics, seized upon by writers. By the 20th century, When tales of the Bermuda Triangle began to capture the world's imagination, it was inevitable that the two legends would entwine. After all, where better to hide a sunken empire than in waters already accused of swallowing ships and planes without a trace? Picture it, a city of marble and gold lying beneath the turquoise waters of the Bahamas, its temples draped in coral, its avenues patrolled by schools of silverfish. Some claim to have seen it. In the 1960s, divers reported vast stone structures off the coast of Bimini, long, straight blocks laid in patterns, resembling a road or wall. Newspapers hailed it as the Bimini Road, evidence at last that Atlantis lay beneath the triangle. Scientists countered that the formation was natural, the product of fractured limestone shaped by tides. But the timing was uncanny. Decades earlier, the American mystic Edgar Cayce had predicted that Atlantis would rise again near Bimini in the late 1960s. When divers discovered the stone blocks in 1968, believers saw prophecy fulfilled. To them, the Bermuda Triangle was not merely a graveyard of ships. It was a veil over something ancient, something alive with memory. Imagine swimming down into those waters. The sunlight fractures as you descend, turning the surface into a distant silver ceiling. Ahead, shapes loom in the blue, rectangles, lines, angles too precise to feel entirely natural. You run your hand along stone, feel the grooves, the edges. Is it geology or architecture? The question lingers, impossible to dismiss. In such ambiguity, myth thrives. The Atlantis connection does more than explain the triangle's mysteries, it transforms them. Ships do not merely vanish. They are pulled into the orbit of a lost power. Compasses do not merely spin. They are disturbed by remnants of technology far beyond our own. Some believers imagine crystal engines buried beneath the seabed, still humming with energy after millennia, warping magnetism, disrupting radios, summoning storms. Others picture Atlantean ruins as gateways, thresholds into other dimensions, where a civilization once stood guard at the edge of our world. It is easy to scoff, to dismiss such ideas as fantasy. But listen to the cadence of the sea at night, the low murmur of waves against the hull, the sudden flashes of light beneath the surface as fish scatter, the silence that follows. The ocean invites imagination. In its silence, in its endless depths, it demands stories to fill the void. Atlantis is the greatest of them all. Even skeptics admit that the Atlantis myth serves a function. It gives shape to the unknown. When a plane vanishes without trace, when a ship disappears in calm seas, the mind resists randomness. We crave pattern, cause, a grand narrative. Atlantis offers one, not chaos, but purpose. Not accident, but design. The triangle is not a graveyard, but a doorway. Yet even if Atlantis never lay beneath these waters, its shadow shapes them still. Every diver who explores the reefs of Bimini, every sailor who glances uneasily at the compass needle, feels the pull of that myth. The Bermuda Triangle is richer for it, darker, more alluring. For what if the stories are true? What if, far beneath the Puerto Rico trench, there really are columns and temples, crystal towers humming faintly, waiting for discovery? What if the ships and planes that vanish here are not lost but taken, welcomed into a city that did not die, but waits? The mind drifts easily into such possibilities when the sea is calm, when the stars glitter above and the horizon blurs. And that is why Atlantis endures. Not because we have found proof, but because we have not. The lack of certainty keeps the doors open, the imagination restless. The same silence that swallows wrecks also fuels belief. And as we drift onward, letting the myth of Atlantis fade back into the depths, the horizon begins to shimmer with lights not of temples, but of something stranger still. Lights that flicker in the sky where no plane flies. Shapes that move against the stars. For the triangle's mysteries are not confined to sea or city. They stretch upward, into the air, into the realm of glowing objects and missing time. Ahead lies another chapter in this unbroken voyage. the stories of UFOs and alien encounters in the Bermuda Triangle. The sea darkens around us as we leave behind the sunken dream of Atlantis. The water grows calm again, the sky opens wide, and for a moment the horizon is still. But as every sailor and pilot in these waters has learned, stillness in the triangle is never to be trusted. Look upward now, not into the abyss, but into the vault of the sky. For here, too, the mysteries gather. Strange lights. Shapes that move against the stars. Stories whispered of encounters not with storms or waves, but with visitors from beyond our world. The Bermuda Triangle, long a theater for natural explanations and geological theories, has also become one of Earth's most enduring stages for the UFO phenomenon. The logic, for those who believe, is compelling. If the triangle is a doorway, if it warps compasses and swallows ships, perhaps it is not only a prison but a passage. Perhaps it is a portal, one through which not just ships vanish, but through which something else arrives. Imagine standing on the deck of a vessel at night, the sea rolling gently, the sky clear. The stars above are sharp, familiar, fixed in their ancient patterns. And then, from the corner of your eye, one star moves. It drifts, halts, then accelerates with impossible speed. Before you can call out, it vanishes. Moments later, a new light appears, closer, brighter. It hovers, silent, casting no reflection on the water, before shooting away into the darkness. To the human eye, there is no natural explanation. And so the story begins. Such tales are not confined to rumor. Pilots have reported them too, their voices etched into radio transcripts. Lights pacing aircraft, keeping formation with uncanny precision. Objects darting into clouds, only to reappear miles away in an instant. In some cases, pilots describe instruments faltering in the presence of these lights, compasses spinning, radios failing, as though the air itself had been altered by proximity. Consider the words of Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, commander of the ill-fated Flight 19 in 1945. Though his transmissions were garbled, lost to static, fragments remain. Everything looks strange, even the ocean. We are entering white water, nothing seems right. To some, this was confusion born of faulty navigation. To others, it was the description of something more uncanny, a passage into a zone where natural law faltered. Could it have been an encounter with something beyond human understanding? Did the Avengers stray not just off course, but into contact? And then there are the stories of missing time. Pilots who fly into clouds and emerge hundreds of miles farther along than they should be, with no memory of the hours between. Sailors who report a night watch that seemed to last only minutes, only to find dawn breaking far too soon. Some frame these tales as encounters with distortions in time and space. Others suggest abductions, the removal of ship and crew into some vessel unseen, returned, or not returned, at the will of others. Imagine it. You are in the cockpit of a small plane, instruments steady, the sea below calm. Suddenly, the sky ahead blooms with light, not lightning, not storm, but a steady, luminous glow, white gold, and silent. Your compass spins, your radio sputters, and your co-pilot stares wide-eyed as the glow envelopes you. For a moment, there is nothing but brightness. Then darkness. When the light fades, your fuel gauges show less than they should, the horizon is unfamiliar, and hours have passed without your knowing. How would you explain it? Skeptics point to fatigue, to weather phenomena like ball lightning or St. Elmo's fire, to tricks of the eye magnified by fear. And indeed, the tropics are rich with atmospheric curiosities. Plasma discharges, reflections, mirages. These can confuse even trained observers. Yet believers remind us that not all accounts can be so easily dismissed. Too many voices, too many consistencies. Lights that move against the wind. Objects that accelerate beyond known technology. Radio silence coinciding with sightings. The 1970s and 80s saw a flourish of books linking UFOs and the Triangle, most notably those by Charles Berlitz, who suggested that alien bases might lie beneath the sea floor, drawing ships and planes into their influence. The Puerto Rico Trench, deep and uncharted, became in such visions not just a graveyard, but a hangar. Even today, whispers persist of strange sonar readings, vast moving shapes in the deep, lights glimpsed far below where no sunlight reaches. Let us drift for a moment into myth. Across cultures, the sky has always been a source of wonder and dread. The Maya, whose world once stretched near these waters, told of gods descending in blazing lights. The Carib peoples spoke of star beings who came from the sea itself. To them, the line between ocean and sky was porous, one flowing into the other. In the Bermuda Triangle, where compasses falter and lights appear without cause, that sense of porousness returns. Perhaps what the ancients saw as gods, we now call aliens. The names change. The odd does not. And what if the triangle is more than stage? What if it is a point of crossing, a thin place in the fabric of reality where our world brushes against another? UFOs here would not be visitors from distant galaxies but neighbors, peering through the same window from the other side. Ships vanish not because they are destroyed, but because they are taken across the threshold. Pilots lose time not because of fatigue, but because time itself flows differently beyond the veil. It is speculation, yes, but the silence of the triangle invites speculation. The absence of evidence becomes a canvas, and upon it we paint fear, wonder, and longing. Whether one believes in alien abductions or not, the stories enrich the mystery. They remind us that for all our science, the sea and sky still conspire to remind us of how little we know. And as we gaze upward, watching those strange lights fade into the night, another possibility takes shape. Perhaps it is not aliens at all, but the fabric of reality itself twisting. Perhaps the triangle does not conceal a civilization or harbor visitors, but is instead a place where time folds, where distance collapses, where a flight of hours takes only minutes, and a voyage begun at dusk ends at dawn with the stars out of place. Ahead of us, the whispers grow stronger. They speak not of beings, but of dimensions. They speak of time warps, of rifts in space itself. And we are sailing straight toward them. The lights fade into the night sky, leaving us staring upward at stars that feel at once familiar and strangely distant. The hum of the ocean seems louder now, as though the sea itself senses what we are about to touch. We have followed tales of lost ships, rogue waves, storms, and alien lights, yet all these mysteries point toward a deeper unease, that in the Bermuda Triangle, it is not just ships and planes that disappear, but time itself. For here, the greatest fear is not drowning, not storm, not fire from the sky. It is stepping unknowingly into a place where reality folds, where minutes become hours, and hours vanish altogether. Imagine this: you are piloting a small aircraft, gliding over calm turquoise waters, when ahead you see a cloud. Nothing unusual. Clouds form and vanish here in minutes. But this one is different. It doesn't drift. It doesn't break apart. It waits, hanging in place, dark at the core. You fly into it, thinking it harmless, and suddenly the cockpit is bathed in light, not sunlight, but a strange, golden glow. The cloud stretches endlessly, twisting around you like a tunnel. Your compass spins, your radio dissolves into static. Then, as abruptly as it began, it ends. You burst into clear sky once more, heart pounding. But your watch no longer makes sense. Minutes are missing, or perhaps hours. You check your position, and find you are hundreds of kilometers farther along than you should be. You have crossed the distance of hours and moments. Where did the missing time go? Stories like this are woven throughout the triangle's lore. Pilots tell of electronic fog that clings to their wings, distorting instruments, stretching or compressing time itself. Sailors whisper of watches running backward, of stars shifting overhead as if the heavens themselves had been rearranged. Such tales blend the language of physics with the cadence of myth, hinting at something stranger than weather, the triangle as a fault line in reality. To those who seek explanation, science offers possibilities that are unsettling precisely because they do not dismiss the accounts outright. Einstein's theories of relativity teach us that time is not constant but elastic, shaped by speed and gravity. In the curved fabric of spacetime, moments can stretch or compress depending on the path one takes. Could the Bermuda Triangle be a place where such curvature is more extreme, where forces we barely understand warp time itself? Some point to magnetic anomalies once more. If the triangle sits at a rare convergence where true north and magnetic north align, could it also sit upon deeper anomalies, eddies in the Earth's magnetic field strong enough to bend time? Others imagine gravity itself warped by hidden masses deep beneath the seabed, pulling at the fabric of space as tides pull at the sea. The Puerto Rico Trench, miles deep and restless with tectonic motion, becomes in this view not just a graveyard but a wound, a place where reality itself bleeds. And then there are the bolder speculations. Wormholes, dimensional rifts, portals between parallel worlds. To physicists, these are mathematical possibilities, exotic solutions to the equations of spacetime. To storytellers, they are the perfect frame for the triangle's vanishings. Ships slip not into the abyss, but into another world. Planes are not lost, but diverted across dimensions. Crewmen do not drown, but wake in another time, another sky. Picture it for a moment. A Navy pilot in 1945 vanishes mid-mission. His aircraft, his crew, his very voice on the radio, all dissolve. Perhaps, in another world, another version of history, they landed safely, their mission unremarkable, their families never grieving. Perhaps our triangle is their doorway, a thin place where worlds touch. And perhaps, in some quiet dream, they look out across unfamiliar seas and wonder what happened to us. This is the allure of the time warp theory. It replaces death with displacement, finality with mystery. Yet it is no less chilling. For what is more terrifying than to lose not just your vessel, but your very place in time? To step out of one night and into another, to find yourself a stranger to your own life? Survivors speak of this unease, their voices hushed, their accounts uncertain. They describe hours missing from their logs, journeys completed too quickly, distances covered with impossible speed. The triangle, they say, does not just consume. It rearranges. Even if the tales are exaggerations, even if fatigue and fear have shaped them, the imagery lingers. The tunnel of clouds, the golden glow, the sudden silence. These motifs repeat across decades, across storytellers, as though drawn from a shared dream. Skeptics say it is coincidence, imagination echoing imagination. Believers say it is pattern, proof of a reality we do not yet grasp. Step with me now into that dream. Picture the horizon at dusk, the sea darkening beneath you, the first stars appearing. Ahead, a storm cloud rises, tall and looming. You steer toward it, thinking only of rain. But inside, there is no storm. The world is soundless, bathed in pale light. For a heartbeat, you feel suspended, not flying, not moving, but drifting in a place outside time. Then, with a jolt, you are back, the instruments steady, the horizon strange. Hours are gone. Or perhaps it is you who is gone, pulled for a moment into a place where clocks have no meaning. The Bermuda Triangle's power lies here, in these blurred boundaries, between science and story, between fear and awe, between time as we know it and time as it might be. Whether rift or wormhole, fog or fatigue, the accounts all circle the same haunting idea, that in this place, the laws of nature are looser, thinner, prone to tearing. And when they tear, the world on the other side leaks through. And yet, as always, the silence of the sea endures. No black boxes recovered that show time folding, no wrecks found straddling centuries. Only stories, repeated, reshaped, whispered like warnings across generations. To some, that is proof of fabrication. To others, it is the very essence of truth. The triangle is not meant to be solved. only experienced, its secrets glimpsed and then gone. But as we sail further, leaving behind the cloud tunnels and temporal fog, another thought rises. Perhaps the triangle is not unique at all. Perhaps it is simply our imagination, sharpened by tragedy, that weaves anomalies into mystery. For the sea is vast, the weather brutal, and human error unrelenting. What if the triangle is no different from any other stretch of ocean? What if its mysteries are illusions, born of stories, of fear, of the human need for wonder? Ahead, the skeptical voices wait, the scientists, the statisticians, the pragmatists who see in every vanished vessel not a rift in time, but a mistake, a storm, an accident magnified by myth. And so our journey carries us toward them, into the cool light of reason. The sea rocks us gently now, as if it too has grown weary of conjuring storms, waves, and tunnels of golden light. We have drifted through stories of lost squadrons, ghost ships, alien lights, and folds in time, each woven with awe and unease. But sooner or later, every voyage must pass from wonder into reason. And so here, in the calm between horizons, we turn to the skeptics, the navigators and scientists who remind us that the Bermuda Triangle may not be a portal, nor a curse, nor a fracture in time, but something simpler. That it is, in fact, nothing at all. Imagine a ship's logbook, pages damp with salt air. On one line is written a storm, on another an engine failure, on another a vanished crew. Each is tragic, but none inexplicable. It is only when we gather them together, place them all within the same triangle on a map, that the pattern emerges. Or so it seems. The skeptics point out that human beings are creatures of pattern, hungry for meaning. We look at stars and see constellations, not random fire. We hear rustles in the dark and imagine intention, not chance. And so too, in the Bermuda Triangle, we string together tragedies into a single, haunted story. The truth, they say, is more ordinary. This is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, a crossroads where vessels pass constantly between the Americas, Europe, and the Caribbean. Thousands of flights cross overhead every year. With so much traffic, accidents are inevitable. And because of the Gulf Stream's swiftness and the ocean's depth, wreckage is often swept away before it can be recovered. The disappearances, then, are not mysterious at all. They are simply statistics, magnified by storytelling. In 1975, journalist Larry Kusch set out to test the triangle's legend. He combed through archives, weather reports, and naval records. What he found was striking. Many of the supposed vanishings were misreported, exaggerated, or had never occurred within the triangle at all. Some ships thought mysteriously vanished, were later found intact. Others had sailed into storms clearly recorded on weather charts. In one case, a plane believed to have vanished in calm skies had actually gone down hundreds of miles away, in rough weather, well outside the triangle's boundary. Kusch concluded that the mystery was not the sea, but the storytelling. The only mystery, he wrote, is why so many people are willing to believe there's a mystery. And yet, even as the skeptics speak, the sea seems to whisper back. Yes, ships vanish everywhere. Yes, storms strike without warning across the globe. But here, in these waters, the silence feels sharper, the absence more complete. Skeptics answer that this is only the weight of legend, that once the Bermuda Triangle became famous, every disappearance here was framed as part of the myth, while identical losses elsewhere passed unnoticed. A freighter lost in the Indian Ocean is a tragedy. A freighter lost in the Triangle is a legend. To test the skeptics' claim, imagine sailing with them. The sky is clear, the compass steady. They spread charts across the deck, pointing to currents, wind patterns, and historical data. Look, they say, the accident rate here is no higher than in any other ocean. And the numbers support them. The U.S. Coast Guard itself has stated as much. The triangle does not exist, except in the imagination of writers. Insurance companies charge no higher premiums for ships or planes passing through it. By the hard light of data, the triangle is no more dangerous than any stretch of busy ocean. But the skeptic's voice, calm and reasonable, never entirely dispels the hush of mystery. For numbers cannot explain the strange details. The compasses that spin, the pilots who speak of clouds that linger like tunnels, the sudden silences on the radio. Skeptics offer answers here too. Compasses spin because of simple misreadings, or because true north and magnetic north sometimes align in these latitudes. Radios falter because of storms, because of interference from the ionosphere. The electronic fog some pilots describe may be little more than disorientation within violent weather systems. To skeptics, the extraordinary claims are unnecessary embellishments, shadows cast by fear. And yet, when you stand on the deck at night, alone with the whisper of the waves and the vastness of the sky, doubt creeps back. Can all those voices, all those vanishings, all those fragments of strange testimony, truly be reduced to error? Or is skepticism itself another story we tell, a shield we raise against the terror of the unknown? The skeptics do not banish the triangle. They tame it. They cut away its shadows with charts and records, leaving behind only accidents, only storms, only statistics. And perhaps they are right. Perhaps this sea is no different from any other, and its only power is the one we have given it in our imaginations. But the fact remains, the triangle endures. Decade after decade, its name is whispered, its stories retold. Skepticism explains the facts. It cannot erase the feeling. And so we drift onward, carrying both voices within us, the calm voice of reason, and the hushed murmur of mystery. For whatever the truth, the triangle has already won. It has carved itself into our imagination, where no statistic can erase it. And as we sail further, the question is no longer whether the mystery is real, but why it survives. Why, even in the age of satellites and GPS, we still look to this stretch of sea and feel unease. Ahead lies that question, waiting for us, why the myth endures. The voices of the skeptics fade like the last echoes of a lecture given in a stormlit room. Their charts and data lie neat and orderly, each line a rational answer, each number a shield against the strange. Yet when the papers are folded away and the lamps dim, the mystery does not leave with them. It lingers in the dark, in the salt wind on your face, in the silence between the swells. And this is where the true power of the Bermuda Triangle reveals itself, not only in ships and planes, but in imagination. For even when explanations abound, the myth endures. Why? The answer lies not in the sea alone, but in us. We are creatures who crave stories. From the first fireside tales told by sailors returned from voyages, we have filled the unknown with voices and visions. The Bermuda Triangle gives us a stage vast enough for fear, hope, and awe to play at once. It offers storms that rise without warning, skies that split with fire, seas that swallow without trace. And into that void, we pour meaning. The lost crew is not merely drowned, it is taken. The vanished plane does not simply crash, it slips into another world. Myth endures because reality alone cannot satisfy the hunger that uncertainty awakens. The triangle first took shape as a cultural phenomenon in the 1950s, when writer Vincent Gaddis gathered scattered tales into one body. He gave the sea a name, a boundary, a legend. What had once been isolated accidents became a pattern, a haunted geography. Then came Charles Berlitz in the 1970s, whose books sold millions, spreading the legend across languages and nations. He filled it with Atlantis, with UFOs, with whispers of portals and lost worlds. To skeptics, he was a spinner of yarns, but to readers, he was a conjurer, a magician turning silence into story. Hollywood followed, with films and documentaries painting the triangle as a theater of cosmic dread. By the time the Coast Guard declared the mystery an invention, it was far too late. The myth had already claimed the world's imagination. But beyond books and films lies something deeper. The Bermuda Triangle speaks to primal fears: the fear of the sea's vastness, the fear of losing direction, the fear of being forgotten. A wreck in shallow waters can be explained, its bones resting on sand where divers may visit. But a wreck in the triangle vanishes into trenches miles deep, where no light and no diver can follow. To be lost here is to be erased. And erasure is the most haunting fate of all. At the same time, the triangle whispers to our longing for wonder. In every disappearance is the possibility not of death, but of discovery. What if they did not drown? What if they found Atlantis, or slipped through a fold in time? What if the vanished are still alive, walking another shore under another sky? In a world that feels ever more mapped and measured, the triangle remains unmapped, immeasurable. A place where science ends and story begins. Think of how the tale spreads. A sailor returns with wide eyes and says, "We saw lights move against the stars." A pilot tells of a compass that spun, a cloud that lingered like a tunnel. Around the hearth or across the airwaves, the story passes. Each listener adds, reshapes, forgets certain details, sharpens others. Soon, the account is larger than fact. And soon after that, fact is irrelevant. The story itself becomes the truth. This is how myths endure, not by resisting scrutiny, but by living in the places where scrutiny cannot reach. And consider how the triangle thrives in contradiction. Skeptics insist it is no more dangerous than any other sea, and they are right. Believers insist it swallows ships without reason, and they are right too, in imagination, if not in data. The myth feeds on both voices. Denial only sharpens fascination. Explanation only fuels hunger for what remains unexplained. The triangle is a mirror, reflecting back the balance of our fear and wonder. Imagine now that we sail across it together one final time. The sea is calm, the stars bright. Nothing stirs, no compass falters, no lights dart in the sky. Yet you cannot shake the feeling that at any moment the silence could deepen, the horizon could dissolve, and something unseen might reach for us. That feeling, the shiver in calmness, the hush in stillness, is why the myth endures. Because the unknown is not confined to storm or wave. It lives in us, in the space between what we know and what we fear. And so the Bermuda Triangle survives as both place and story. A stretch of ocean, yes, but more than that, a canvas. On its waters, we paint Atlantis and UFOs, storms and time rifts. On its silence, we hang our need for explanation and our refusal to accept it. Long after science has dismissed it, long after skeptics have closed their books, the triangle will endure. Because we will endure in needing it. Ahead of us now lies the present, the age of satellites, of GPS, of sonar that can peer into the deepest trenches. The myth has not died, but science has marched forward, probing the sea's secrets with instruments far keener than compasses or sextants. And so our voyage drifts toward these modern investigations, where the mystery is measured not by story, but by data, and yet where silence still lingers, stubborn as the tide. The myth lingers like a fog, soft and irresistible, but as we drift closer to the present, the sea takes on a sharper clarity. Satellites orbit overhead now, their eyes unblinking, mapping every current, every cloud. Radar scans the skies, sonar traces the ocean floor, GPS pinpoints a vessel's position to the exact second. This is no longer the age of compass and sextant. We live in an era where the sea's mysteries are meant to be tamed, measured, and understood. And so the Bermuda Triangle, once a canvas of imagination, has become the focus of modern investigation, where science and technology press their hands against the veil. Picture a research vessel cutting across these waters in the early morning. Its decks gleam with steel instruments, its crew busy with sensors and monitors. Cables spool out into the deep, sonar pulses echo downward, and satellites beam streams of data from above. The triangle is no longer approached as a haunted sea, but as a laboratory, a field of study. What the mariner once faced with fear, the scientist now faces with instruments. And yet, even here, silence lingers. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, has studied these waters extensively. Their findings point again and again to natural explanations: violent weather patterns, sudden storms, the immense speed of the Gulf Stream sweeping wreckage far from its last known location. Hurricanes, too, form here with ferocity unmatched, their power enough to erase ships and planes without leaving a trace. Add to this the region's heavy traffic, and the numbers of accidents seem less a mystery, more an inevitability. In NOAA's words, there is no evidence that mysterious disappearances occur with any greater frequency in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other large, well-traveled region of the world. But if the scientists close one door, they open another. For in their work, the sea is revealed not as ordinary, but as extraordinary in other ways. Satellite data has shown waterspouts rising like spinning towers of glass, sudden and violent, capable of tearing apart small vessels in moments. Radar has revealed squall lines forming in less than half an hour, storms blooming from clear skies and vanishing again as quickly. Sonar has mapped the Puerto Rico Trench, a yawning abyss more than 8 kilometers deep, so vast that wreckage falling into it might never be recovered. Each of these discoveries offers explanation, yes, but also awe. The triangle is not cursed, perhaps, but it is dangerous in ways far subtler than myth once suggested. Other researchers turn their eyes downward, into the seafloor itself. Using seismic surveys, they have confirmed the presence of vast methane hydrate deposits. Craters scar the seabed, silent reminders of ancient gas eruptions. The theory that a sudden release could sink a ship in minutes has been modeled and tested, and though rare, the possibility remains. Imagine the shock of a scientific diver finding such a crater, its edges sharp as though carved yesterday, its scale vast enough to swallow a village. In such evidence, myth finds grounding, though mystery is not dispelled. And then there are the magnetic fields. Modern mapping of Earth's magnetism shows that anomalies indeed ripple across the globe. The triangle is not unique, yet its alignment of true and magnetic north at certain latitudes gives rise to unusual compass behavior. Pilots today carry instruments far beyond the simple magnetic needle, but in the mid-20th century, such shifts could spell disaster. Science shows us the mechanism. Myth remembers the consequence. Still, the allure persists because even technology does not erase uncertainty. Planes vanish less often now, ships are more rarely lost without trace, but they are not immune. In 2015, the cargo ship El Faro sank within the triangle during Hurricane Joaquin. Despite modern weather forecasting, despite GPS, despite communication, the storm overwhelmed her. 33 crew were lost. Wreckage was found, yes, but the tragedy reminded us that the sea remains a power no instrument can fully tame. And science, for all its rigor, sometimes deepens the enigma instead of closing it. Pilots in recent years still report sudden instrument failures, compasses that spin, radio silence that cannot be traced to storm. Divers still surface from the reefs near Bimini Road and insist they have seen patterns in the stone too precise for chance. Even with sonar, radar, and satellites, the human imagination refuses to let go. For every report filed, another story is whispered. Picture again our research vessel, sensors humming. The captain peers at a screen where sonar outlines the seafloor, jagged and scarred. Suddenly, the image stutters, glitches, then clears. For a few moments, something appeared, a shape, vast, angular, gone before it could be captured. The crew dismisses it as a software error. But one or two linger at the screen, silent, wondering if the abyss had whispered back. This is the paradox of modern investigations. The more we know, the more we realize how much eludes us. The triangle may not harbor aliens or time rifts, but it remains a place where human limits are revealed. Our instruments reach deeper than our ancestors' eyes, but the abyss is deeper still. Our satellites trace every storm, yet storms rise faster than we can always escape. We explain, but explanation does not still the unease. And so the myth persists alongside science, not because science has failed, but because science has limits, and the unknown always lingers just beyond them. Every discovery adds another layer to the story, sharpening awe, even if not mystery. The triangle has become not just a myth, not just a sea, but a meeting place between wonder and reason. As we sail on, the horizon widens. Behind us lie centuries of fear and fascination, ahead lies reflection. For whether the triangle is a curse or a construction of human imagination, its power is undeniable. And that brings us to our final waters, not the storms, not the lights, not the anomalies, but the way the Bermuda Triangle lives within us. For this sea is no longer just a place. It has become an idea, a shadow we carry, a story we tell. And so we arrive at the last part of our voyage, the triangle and human imagination. The engines of the research vessel fade behind us, their steady hum dissolving into the endless wash of the sea. We leave behind satellites and sonar, equations and explanations, and drift into quieter waters, waters that belong not to instruments, but to memory, to story, to imagination. For in the end, the Bermuda Triangle is not only a place on the map. It is a place in the mind. And it is here, in imagination, that its true power endures. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the triangle not as coordinates, but as a shadow stretched across centuries. It begins with sailors and wooden ships, staring at compasses that twitch and skies that darken without warning. They return home with tales of lights that danced above the waves, of waters that boiled, of comrades who vanished into mist. Their listeners lean closer, shiver, and pass the story onward. From logbook to tavern, from tavern to village, from village to the world. The triangle is born not from charts, but from voices. In every age it adapts. For the Victorians, it was ghost ships, hulks adrift, crews gone, meals still warm on the table. For the 20th century, it was squadrons of planes, radios crackling with final words before silence claimed them. For the age of spaceflight, it became portals, aliens, rifts in time. The triangle reflects us, our fears and our fascinations. It is a mirror for our changing anxieties. The sea for the sailor, the sky for the pilot, the void for the modern dreamer who looks beyond Earth. But it is more than fear. It is wonder. The triangle offers possibility, and in that possibility we find stories that reach beyond tragedy. What if Atlantis lies below, waiting? What if the vanished are not dead, but elsewhere, alive beneath another sun? Myths endure not because they terrify us, but because they give us places to dream. The triangle, vast and unsolved, is a canvas for the human imagination, a reminder that even in an age of satellites, mysteries remain. Think of how many books, films, and songs have been born from these waters. Novelists use it as a backdrop where characters vanish, only to reappear decades later unchanged. Filmmakers cast its waves as thresholds to other worlds. Even children's cartoons spin tales of its depths. Each retelling spreads the legend further, until the triangle becomes not just a place, but a cultural symbol, shorthand for the mysterious. A ship lost anywhere else is an accident. A ship lost here is a story. And consider the psychology. We are beings who fear randomness. A shipwreck caused by poor maintenance feels unsatisfying. A plane crash caused by weather feels too ordinary. But a disappearance in the triangle, that has weight, drama, mystery. It transforms tragedy into narrative, chance into myth. The unknown is not just endured, it is shaped, given form, made meaningful. In this way, the triangle comforts even as it frightens. It tells us that the sea does not take blindly, but with purpose. Now imagine walking along a beach in Miami or Bermuda at twilight. Tourists gather, pointing to the horizon. Some tell stories of family members who vanished here, voices trembling. Others laugh, retelling wild tales of Atlantis and aliens. For both, the triangle is alive, a presence stretching just beyond the waves. It is not only a myth told in books, it is lived, whispered, felt. For those who sail or fly through it, even if only on holiday, there is always a moment when the thought crosses the mind, what if it happens to me? And that, perhaps, is the triangle's greatest legacy. Not the ships, not the planes, but the pause it creates in the human heart. That shiver of uncertainty, that thrill of awe. In a world where we measure mountains, photograph galaxies, and map the ocean floor, there remain so few places where we can still feel that edge of the unknown pressing close. The triangle is one of them. As our voyage nears its end, look once more at the sea around us. It is calm now, silvered by moonlight, vast and indifferent. No compasses spin, no radios falter. And yet you feel it, the weight of centuries of stories, the hush of vanished voices, the possibility that at any moment, silence could deepen and take you too. That is the true Bermuda Triangle. Not a curse, not a rift, not a map of disasters, but an idea. A reminder that the world still has shadows. And so, our journey closes not with answers, but with reflection. The Bermuda Triangle endures because we need it to endure. Because somewhere deep inside, we hope that not everything can be solved, not every shadow illuminated. We need places that resist explanation, that hold mystery like the sea holds wreckage. We need the reminder that we are not masters of the world, but wanderers still, leaning close to the waves, whispering stories to keep the darkness at bay. And so, as the night settles and the horizon fades, let the triangle remain. Let it haunt, let it inspire, let it endure. For in every storm cloud, in every compass needle that twitches, in every stretch of ocean that gleams empty beneath the sun, the shadow of its myth lingers. And perhaps that is enough.